So what I'm going to talk about today is based on experience I've had myself, what I've read about, what I've learned about, and what I've learned through my patients, and all of those teachers for whom I'm grateful. So I have some disclosures. One is the slide content is largely based on a pediatrician named Dr. Ken Ginsberg, who's a pediatrician at CHOP, who is a adolescent and a pediatric parenting guru. And so he is a great resource, sells a lot of his stuff through the AAP, and a lot of the information I have is, comes from him as well as what's on the slides. I'm influenced both by my role as a mom as well as my of raising the kids. I was a teen once before, although I didn't ever get a cell phone back when I was a teen. I have no financial conflicts in talking to you about tweens and teens, but I do think they're priceless. And last is I am by no means a perfect parent. I continue to learn how to communicate with my children, and I fully acknowledging, as it might sound up here, parenting is hard, and it's worth putting the work into. So what are some of the objectives that I want to work with is first is that just trying to understand a little more why adolescents do what they do, as well as try to understand a little more why we do what we do. And then with that together, what are some steps forwards and what are some things we could do to kind of help both of us? So first I'm going to go back to a little anatomy, the anatomy of the brain, and I'm going to break it down into some easy things. First, just talk about the prefrontal cortex. That's that area up there that's responsible for executive function. It's the part of our brains that information comes into, we process it, and then we decide what we're going to say or what actions we might have. So there's a process that's going. It helps regulate your mood. It manages the rest of kind of your brain, and it helps you decide like abstract thinking, like I'm not going to say that. That might hurt your feelings. I don't want to hurt your feelings. Therefore, I'm not going to say it. That's what your prefrontal cortex. It's a little bit different than the amygdala. The amygdala is this tiny little like pea-shaped, almond-shaped part of your brain that is really responsible for potential threats, strong emotions, fight or flight, that thing that says, there's danger, I gotta be on alert because I might need to run, I might need to fight, I need to be ready. It also sets the rest of your body ready, that releases that cortisol, which is one of those stress hormones that gets you ready to go. It gets you ready, your heart is going faster, your muscles are ready, because you don't know if that bear over there is going to come get you, and you just need to go. You don't need to think about, I wonder if I could talk to that bear. I wonder if that bear is going to eat me. You just need to get out of that area where it's dangerous. And so with your body totally in that heightened state, you just react. Now, why I have the little stick figures is that I want you to know one of those stick figures is 12, and the other stick figure is 12 too. But they're different sizes. Kids and brains come in different sizes, and you can't always tell what's going on just by what they look like. You know from experience seeing a 12-year-old who acted more like a 15-year-old, and you've seen a 12-year-old who acts more like a 10-year-old. They have a huge variation, but what we do know is that their brains are not fully formed, different than adult forms. We as adults have difficulty processing emotions, putting all that in there, and then going to the next move. Imagine trying to do this with a brain that's not fully functioning yet. And that's what teenagers have, a brain that's not at its full function. Is it an okay brain? Yes. Is it a normal to be like? Yes. But it's not yet fully formed, just like their bodies are not yet fully formed. So it's a lot harder for the adolescents. So if you look at that in the prefrontal cortex up there, what you know is that in the preteen age, when you have a sad feeling or scared, you're afraid, you heard a sound, there's a monster in your bed, and you are feeling that, you are activating your amygdala. There's not a connection in a younger age child, meaning less than preteen, between their amygdala and their prefrontal cortex. So you know what they do? They call out for their parents. And their parents, if they're available, are their prefrontal cortex. They calm you down. They are able to get you back. It's okay, mom's here. We've said that kind of thing before. That's what brings them back down. So we are functioning as their prefrontal cortex. A teenager is different. A teenager start to make that form. Between the red and the green, they're starting to make connections. So they aren't calmed down by the parents as much as they were when they were in 10. And they don't necessarily want the parent to be there. But we are there to guide, to help that connection be an appropriate connection and to use that. So with that help, we can help strengthen that bond between the amygdala, that connection, and the prefrontal cortex to help them know how they should respond, what's appropriate, what's going to be okay in society, and what's going to keep them safe as well. So that being said, this is what it looks like inside an adolescent's mind. You have her as the prefrontal cortex, him there as the amygdala. You have these reactions of, as a child, their amygdala is kind of in charge. They don't have a prefrontal cortex like we do. So their reactions, think about younger kids. When they want something, they cry for it. What happens? We meet that need. That goes away sometimes as you get older. So that is the one that can be in charge. And the amygdala can outshine and outloud the prefrontal cortex. The other can happen too. As we get older, as adults, and we can use our prefrontal cortex to calm our amygdala, but that is a real challenge in the adolescent population. So when that amygdala gets going, it totally can make that prefrontal cortex essentially just be whispering while the amygdala is having the big impact. So what kind of things make this even harder to do? So one of the things, it's impacted by how old you are. As you get older, you have that connection a little bit better. Growth, mentorship, things you've watched, different by stresses. When you're stressed by something, it might be even more difficult. And also by experiences, what you've been through in your life. And so I want to take a little side note to talk about something called ACEs. So this is a common, some of you might have heard about it, some it might be a new thing to hear about. What is ACEs? And so these are different sets of adverse childhood events. And there have been studies done on them for years saying what happens when a child is exposed to different things. And in the official ACEs cases, it talks about abuse, neglect, and also household challenges, which might mean parental discord, somebody being incarcerated, witnessing violence. When the kid has experienced any of those, what that is a constant stimulation of their amygdala. So what happens with these kids is that they are constantly in a state of like this. They're kind of thing, you say something to them, they're, what? They cannot get to their prefrontal cortex in an easy way. They're stuck in that amygdala controlling because they have this constant source of cortisol. So it makes it even more difficult. So when we're talking adolescence, if you have an adolescent who has had some of these experiences, and they go beyond the ones I have listed there, it can also be experiencing homelessness. It can be bullying at school. Other things can impact that as well. And it makes it even more difficult for them to get that connection from the amygdala and help the prefrontal cortex step in. So we know that when kids have had experiences to those things, it is a more difficult path for them. And when they have that heightened amygdala stimulation all the time because they don't know when dad might come home and yell at them. They don't know if they might have food in that next day. They don't know if they're going to get beaten. And as well, they don't know if they're going to get teased the next day. This kid doesn't know if he's going to get bullied. This kid doesn't know if he's going to have a home because they're in the car. They're living in the car. When you have that heightened state, you no longer can easily recognize the difference between real and not real stress. So you don't recognize between, is that a bear or is that a picture of a bear? Because you're just as stimulated by that picture of a bear and ready to do this. So those kids who have experiencing are definitely going to have more difficulty with being able to get that natural adolescent pathway from amygdala control to prefrontal cortex and have that work like we would want it to be. So what is the primary thing that can help this? The primary thing that can help it is having in their life an adult in which they trust. This person is safe, they are stable, they are able to nurture that relationship, and they can go to that person. It's like that, imagine if you were scared because dad might come home, but grandma's holding your hand and she's there with you. Imagine not knowing where you're gonna spend the night that night, but you know that grandma has a house and you might stay there. It is having some adult in your life. It could be a coach, it could be a teacher, it could be a friend. Those children who have that factor with them helps protect them and allow them to more easily get from amygdala to prefrontal cortex. So we as adults have an amazing, a wonderful opportunity to be that person. And it could be for our own child, or it could be for our grandchild, or it could be for another one. But the more the more that child is able to trust someone, that can help be a defense and a buffer against the power of ACEs. So let's talk a little bit more of why we parent like we do. There's a lot of differences in terms of parenting styles and how. So I wanted just to go through with a little bit of why. The first one is largely the thing that has the most, the template, our default might be, is how our parents parented us. So we see that in how we do. But adding to that is also what our parents didn't do. We can see things that we vow, I'm never doing that with my kid. And so it can also be just as strong of a pull of something your parents didn't do, and you want to make sure that your child got that. Cultural values, things like corporal punishment, spare the rod, spoil the child. How were you raised? What are your values with that might make a difference in terms of your religion or your culture about how you parent. Our personalities in general. Some of us might be anxious people. We're worried about a lot of things. We fear a lot of things. We might parent and be more overprotective because that's who we are and that's what we're thinking about, and that can go in. And as we all know, our kids can bring it out in us. You're laughing because you understand exactly what I mean. We might think we're this, and then that kid triggers us, and suddenly we are a parent we didn't think we were going to be. So that trigger right there just can push our limits and make us be a parent we didn't plan on being. It can be the advice we get. There's a lot of advice we get from grandma, from aunts, from uncles, from books, from TikTok, from other things that tell us what kind of parent we be, and it can impact on how you are. It's also the science behind it. Sometimes the science behind it is really difficult to interpret. There are so many things saying, this study says, she says this, he said this is what this academy says. How do you filter that all down and really know? Put your infants on their back. Back when I was a kid, it was put your infants on their tummy so they didn't choke. And then now it's on their side. No, it's on their back with the pacifier, with not. It changes, and how are we supposed to filter that all and know what's really right for a child? And then the resources we have or do not have. Did you just lose your job? Are you not getting along with someone in your household? Are you able to have a place you can come back and spend the night in? Are you experiencing homelessness? All of that stuff can impact how we parent. So, why do you want to be the kind of a kid that your parent chooses to talk to? I'm sorry, why do you want to be one of a parent the child chooses to talk to? There's a lot of value in that. And the first, it doesn't just affect your relationship in this moment right now with this kid, it affects your relationship for the rest of your life. And if you are able to connect with that kid now, your chances of staying connected with that kid when he's 50 and you're 80 is much higher. So you're not just parenting for this moment, you're parenting for the future. In addition, the communication skills that you teach your child, that you model for your child, that you incorporate him in or her, those are going to be the ones they take on into their own life. It's going to be how they can maybe communicate with their future significant other. It's how they communicate with their boss. It's how they might communicate with their children. And here's an opportunity you have to make a difference in that. And when you communicate openly with your child, you allow and you give them the opportunity to choose to communicate openly with you. And that's a way to monitor them and to keep them safe, because we know it's important to keep them safe. So what kind of different parenting styles are out there? So I'm going to go through a couple. They have different names depending on when you, different studies, different way, but I'm going to go through some different names that we talk about. So the first ones I call authoritarian. The authoritarians are the ones that do as I say, because I said so, here's the rules, and we're doing them. It comes from a place of almost talking down with them. You're not talking with them. You're giving them, this is what we're doing, and it's more in a lecture form. So that's considered, if you look at that is low warmth, high rules, with the intention of keeping the kids safe, but this is the path that they're going. Not a lot of room for flexibility. The second one would be permissive. That goes on there as like, we're like friends. I really care about you. I trust you to make your own decisions. So what that is high warmth. I really love you. I care about you. I want to be your friend. I trust you. Do what you think is right. So that has the lower rules. And then you have the low warmth, low rules, which can also be uninvolved, or maybe even might call it disengaged. That's like, hey, I was a kid. I survived it. You're going to too. And so it's almost can be perceived by a kid as I don't really care in that part of it. And then there's the high warmth, high rules. It has been labeled before authoritative. Sometimes when you label it authoritative, it gets confused with authoritarian. So another name that's called is a balanced or a lighthouse. And what you are saying to that child is, I am better than being your friend. I'm your parent. I will be here. I will stay with you. I'm going to let you make mistakes, but if I'm worried about your safety or your moral values, I'm going to step in and I'm going to give you the recommendations of what you're doing. So you are saying both, I love you, I am there for you, but when it comes down to your safety and your morals, I am going to make sure you're being the person that I know you can be. So some of parenting approaches not to do, some kind of things that sometimes stick out in our minds and how we might react. So the first one is kind of called alarmist. That's when your fear makes you in doing something that kind of sets off a parenting alarm, and instead of listening, you bark out an order. So an example might be if your child came home and said, hey, today at school, Lawrence totally came and I think he was high. And you go, what? You are never going over to his house. I knew he was bad news. You need to stay away from that kid. And so that's coming from a place of, I'm trying to protect my child. But what you've just done is shut down that kid. You think he's going to tell you about it if it happens again? And you've missed a beautiful opportunity to understand and see what they're thinking about drugs and have a conversation with them. So if you bust right into alarmist and you hear this, it makes you afraid and you bust out those, you are going to miss some opportunities that you could have to grow both yourself and that child in that time period. There's the I hate this word, catastrophizing. This is the sky is falling kind of thing. So this one example could be like if your kid comes home and said, oh man, got a C- in algebra today. And you go, what? You got a C-? Oh my gosh, we got to get you a tutor. I got to talk to that teacher. I think they've been giving you too much homework. We got to fix this. Maybe you need a new teacher. We should get you in a different class so you can learn that better. You are taking this and you are taking it to a whole new level, and they're like, whoa. If you take this because you're worried truly about the child and you want them to succeed, but you blow this up, they're going to go, I don't want this kind of drama. I see what happens when things go wrong, and you might just make it worse. And so you're laughing over here. You might just make it worse. And so they're going to hold that from you because, one, they don't want you to stress about it, and two, why do they want to stress about seeing your stressful reaction? Another is over empathizing. We want to be empathetic, but that can go too far. If you have this intense output, like you were right there in that kid's shoes, a kid could come and share a problem with you, and then you dig in and you just add to the drama. So an example of this might be, say, daughter comes home and said, oh my gosh, Susan, they were talking about me and they did this on social media and they made fun of this and we're not best friends anymore. And you go, I never liked her anyway. And her mom, she doesn't cook very good and I don't like going over to her house, so I'm glad. And the next day, who is she best friends again with tomorrow? But do you think she's going to tell you? Do you think she's going to tell you this again? No, because they want you to be they want a listening board. They want you to hear these things. They don't want you to intervene and do that. And once you've done that, you've walked yourself into a place that's going to be hard to get out of. So what are some parenting approaches that you should do? Let's talk about it. Once you find the right space in which to talk to a child, as you know, they have to be ready. You can't put up like office hours and say, parenting hours, we'll talk now. It doesn't work. So some things to try is like in the car, going on a walk, throwing a ball while you guys are face forward and so you're not right there just having this conversation, which can be daunting to a teenager. Playing a game, maybe it's writing thoughts in a notebook and they write them back. But what you're trying to do is find a space where you have comfort depending on the kid you're working with. So meeting them in the timing that works for them and to be available. I found through personal experience, when I would still have work to do, but I was at home, is I would plant myself at the kitchen counter and I would do my work. It might be like, somebody might come, because you know what's right next to me, the refrigerator. And so if they came down, chances are they were going to talk. I had some amazing conversations just because I was there working or doing whatever in that common area as opposed to up in my room. And so this is me right there. See, I drew myself. That's me just sitting in the counter. That might work in your household too, but figuring out what makes you so that you show them I'm available. They might not have went up and went in my room, knocked on the door and said, can we talk? But they might come down and start making a sandwich and then talk and tell you what's going on for the day. Another thing is just to respect who they are as individuals. Enjoy them. Show your enjoyment from them. Talk to them about and see them who they really are. Get to know them. And don't just base who they are in the moment of what's happening there. think of them at this whole time period. This is who they are. They are not defined by that last little moment of what just happened or what you're taking care of. What defines them is who they've been for the past 10 to 15 years, not the last 36 hours. When you are talking with them or giving them advice, also put it out there that your intentions are pure. You want to help raise them to be the best version of themselves, and that's why you're doing this. You don't have some ulterior motive in there. And let them know that you're a resource for them. You will be there. You were going to help them. Your job is to help them grow and act in a way that they're going to be accepted by the rest of those in society. And it's not only your job and your responsibility, it's your pleasure. You want to do this. You want to be there, and you want to keep them safe, and that's what they deserve. Okay. Sometimes we can all admit it's challenging. It's challenging to be that parent. There are going to be times when there are annoyances. There's going to be times when there are strong feelings between you. There's going to be time when there are silences. And part of figuring that out are those experiences. They're part of their figuring out that adolescent question of, who am I? Who am I? They know that they're not part of you, and they want to push you away. And that's them practicing about what it feels like, without even their knowledge of doing it, practicing what does it feel like to not be part of your parents. So don't, as an adult and a parent, assume that it's on you, that there's something you did wrong or it's about you. They're testing their wings, they're seeing what it feels like. So when they check out, when they get silent, this is not the time for you to get even. Well, fine, if you're gonna be like that, I can be like that too. If you cannot talk to me, I'm not talking to you because you did this. This is not the time to do that, nor is it the time to lean further in. You need to talk to me. Where are you going? Come back here. We want to talk. It's not the time to do that. It's not going to be a meaningful conversation. What they need is some space in that point. What they need is this stable, solid sounding board that's predictable, reliable, and it's there for them with unconditional love. That's what they're looking for. So why I have the birds up there is because I also, one of the descriptions that also Dr. Ginsberg brings up is describing this as in a nest. So you think about baby birds in a nest. Man, all you do is go like this, and in comes the food. These two birds bring you food every time you need it, and that nest is all comfy and warm, and it's fluffy, and it's just the perfect place to be for like 10 years. And then what happens is brain puberty, and that happens before you can see anything on their body. This is when their brain is starting to change, and suddenly they're like, you know what? There's a stick sticking up in this fluffy nest. This isn't so comfortable. And then a little while down the road, it's like, these birds, they're so embarrassing. They like chew their food, and then they give it to me. They drop it off. They're all gawking, and I can get my own food. I don't need them. And then they're like, this is more than uncomfortable thing. This whole nest is not comfortable. I need out of here. And they fly. That's the process that's going on there. If you stand there as a bird and meet their whole needs and keep feeding them and tell them to stay in the nest, is that what you want? Do you really want that bird growing your nest? There's no room for you in there anymore. Do you want them to be able to expand those wings and go? And you want them to be able to come back when they want to. So if you're constantly going after them one way or another, they're gonna fly out of that nest and they're gonna wave and say, see ya, goodbye. As parents, don't we want them coming back and visiting, checking in, talking with us? This is your opportunity to invite them back to the nest to visit, but still that is a path in which they need to go to come back and see you. So let's go back to this balanced parenting, and lighthouse is what we'll call it, the old authoritative section. Kids want their parents to be stable. They want to be like a lighthouse. So a lighthouse's job is to shine down on and show the ships, the rocks that might be dangerous. It's the lighthouse's job to show the light out there to the waves and watch those waves. It's not the lighthouse's job to go and drive the ship. It's not the job of the lighthouse to go down and move those rocks. This is the job of the lighthouse, and that's kind of the image of what you would want to be in the lighthouse parenting. You are there, you are loving and warm, you care about their safety, and you're gonna monitor this for them. But you are not running the show, but you are there to provide them that bit of safety to keep them safe. You're talking with them that when it comes down to your safety or morals, I'm gonna step in. But the rest of it, that's your business to figure out how you're gonna get over those waves. And we want you to be flexible, to meet the needs going on. So what does that need? Kids need to make mistakes in order to learn. Part of being that lighthouse is also having a balance, and that balance is then that flexibility. So if you look at what I mean in this particular station, is not everything is black and white with parenting. You can be the lighthouse, but they're still going to and have rules, but you need still to have that little flexibility as that kid grows and earns those new rights, privileges, and abilities. So even though you have this unwavering presence there, and this creation of this foundation of security, sometimes you need to have a compromise. So an example might be, you are a lighthouse parent. You know your kid has the rules. Curfew is 10 o'clock. That's a rule, and the parent and children understand what it is. You have a child who's doing well and presents and says, Mom, Dad, I want to go to this concert. This concert doesn't get over till 11 o'clock. I know that's past my curfew. What might you worry about? Who I'm going with? I'm going with Janine. Her mother's driving us there and picking us up at the end. We will be home within 15 minutes after that. I'll have my cell phone on me. You might also worry about my sleep. I know I can sleep in, and I'm going to get all my homework done before the concert, so I know that I can sleep in and I won't have to do it there. And I'm asking you for this. You, in an authoritarian, might be, nope, curfew's 10 o'clock. In this kind of parenting with flexible, you might go, your only answer is yes. They've gone through that process. If you say no in these kind of situations, is that kid going to come back to you and ask, think how well prepared she was, explaining all the things they thought about, your worries, she's heard it, she's learned it. But if you shut them down without a discussion, if you shut them down without thinking, is this the right thing for do, they're not going to come back. And you know what you're going to hear next time? Hey, Mom, Dad, I'm spending the night at Rachel's house tomorrow. I'll give you a call tomorrow. That's what you're going to get. So by having these discussions, by listening to them, to stop and think, should I compromise in this point? That's part of flexible parenting. Okay, but wait, are you rejecting me? The answer is yes, I am, but it's temporary. And concentrating that on parents, because it can be hard. It can be hard to be rejected. You can feel like it hurts. Well, it hurts them too. They didn't wake up that morning and say, oh my gosh, how could I really hurt my mom today? I think I'll reject her. That's not what they're going. It's happening. They can't always explain why it's going on there. But that might come out in form of disrespect, ignoring them, shunning you, maybe even seem embarrassed by you. How did this happen? Your brain is going, what did I do wrong? And I'm here to tell you, tell your inner parent voice, hey, it's not about you. It's about them. This is the adolescent journey. This is, my kid is developing. Isn't this what I wanted? I want him to go, but yes, acknowledge that it hurts. But you can take a deep breath when you realize this and go, okay, this isn't about me and my parenting. This is about them and the journey they're on. So what can we do with these kids? And the number one thing is giving them space. Instead of reacting, even consider getting curious about it and talking with them about it to understand what's really going on in this situation and understanding they might not know either. Trying not to take it personally, be calm, steadfast. You're going to hear me say that a lot of what you are. Listening wall, you are there, you are steadfast. Even if it's not returned, you want to show them that you are solidly loving. Be available. I don't mean walking around and following them. I mean, let that come back and talk to me. I'll be in the kitchen. If you need anything, I'm upstairs. Be available. Let them know that you're still available in that moment. And mutual respect. There's a lot of times when we can label what our children might do as disrespectful. Sometimes when you jump on that right in that moment, does it go in? Not necessarily. So it might be that at a different time, you have to approach that subject about mutual respect. I show you this respect. This is what I expect back. And that's a lesson to learn, but it might not be right in that moment. And just thinking this is a bump in the road of normal development, and how you handle it can hugely impact how they handle it well and how smooth or not smooth it is. So let's talk about how do we support you and me in this part of it. Remembering that this relationship is going to evolve into something more mutual. It's not always going to be about this like this. Your relationship was different when they were 3, it's different when they're 13, it's different when they're 18, and it's going to be different when they're 27. But we are parenting not only for that kid in that moment, we are parenting for the 27-year-old kid they're going to become. This newer relationship as the goal is one that can last a lifetime. It's not just a temporary, in this moment when I had control. It's you gave them the tools, you showed them the respect, and it can last a lifetime. If there's a partner in parenting with you, try to function as a steady unit. And if you need support, use a trusted friend or maybe even a counselor, someone that can help you get through this, because man, sometimes it can be really difficult. And if those challenges do seem unsurmountable, sometimes mental health or even substance use gets in there, and you might need more help. You might need professional help, and that is a time to reach out. And trust in the process that this kid is going to push you away so they can more clearly define yourself, and give some grace. Your belief in that they are going to like who they find in themselves, and you expressing this, is one of the most positive, influential things they will hear. That you have confidence, you, the person who knows them better than anybody else, believes in them. That is such a strong thing. And why do we love our kids? Why do we want them to feel loved? Because we want to know that they are valuable and they are worth being loved like that. And so this is our opportunity to show them. So what are some of the misunderstandings that can happen with adolescents? So first one, your teenager is not going to like you anymore. We hear that bandied about, that, oh, enjoy this now because you're not going to like you anymore. And your reaction might be that someone disengages. If they're not going to like me, why am I going to invest in them? What's the value in that? Another one maybe is your teenager is inherently over risky and they're destined for trouble. So what you might parent as is, I got to protect them from themselves, not guide them about how to be safe. You're protecting them. And in that protection, maybe they're not learning the lessons that they needed to learn. And another is your teenager can't be reasoned with. Your reaction, I'm not going to put in the effort to talk with them. They're not going to understand. They're not going to listen anyway. So why do it? So these are some myths that aren't true. It doesn't have to be this way. If you lay the groundwork as we're talking about, it doesn't have to be this way. So what are some of the problems that can create because of the dangers of the misunderstandings? First, for the parent, they may deeply fear what's coming. How many are like, oh my gosh, they're almost teenagers, and it's a time to be afraid? I can tell you, I had some rough times with my teenagers, but I loved that time with the teenagers. It was fun watching their brains do what their brains did. But I hear so many who are just afraid of it. And so it doesn't have to be that way. You might try to over-impact by protecting them or disengaging because you're wondering, will I still matter? It is important to be a parent at that point. And you can miss out on an incredible journey and experience with your kid. What about from the child's aspect? Have you ever been like in a grocery store or someplace public and your kid's all nuzzling up to you, they're 10, 11-year-old, and someone says, yeah, enjoy that while they last. They're going to hate you in a couple of years. I mean, have you heard some things like that? And it means in good fun because that's the myth that's out there. And the myths are generally based on some truth, but it doesn't have to be that way. So you have these kids saying, wait, Mom, you mean I'm not going to like you anymore? Like, what is normal? Do I have to be in trouble to get to fit in? And they're already asking who I am. And all this on top of it just makes it even more difficult. So those potential damagings, part of the misunderstanding of adolescence, can really weigh on a child and on the adult. So let's just review over some of the stuff we recap. Adolescence is hard. Your brain naturally struggles, but we need to do it to become an adult. On top of that, if we connect with them in this process, it's going to make a difference because through connection, you have more cooperation. And by being that loving, balanced parent with a steadfast listening wall, you are supporting that kid in that journey and you can make it less bumpy. So now you might say, how do I do that? I hear what you're saying. I want to know what are some things I can take away and do with love. So we're going to talk about how to love your child. So the first part, listen without judgment. That is such a difficult thing to do for some people. What I mean is when they come to you, whether it's a problem, an excitement, first listen without judgment. An example might be when they run up to you and say, hey, I'm gonna go to this party, it's gonna be at my friend's house and they live over there, and you're like, that's not happening. Listen first. Listen to what they're saying before you sit in there with judgment. Next, Open-ended questions. If you can't think of a question, my fallback is tell me more. The questions largely relate to what they're saying, but if you can't say, oh, and what is blah, 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 and who is blah, 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 oh, that sounds fun, and tell me more. It's a great way to put it out to hear them talk more so you can understand what they're even talking about. Validating their feelings. If they're coming to tell you, man, this rough thing happened, I don't know what I'm going to do about it, I'm hearing more of that, recognize that, wow, you sound really frustrated, or this looks like it's really made you sad. Label their feelings. Tell them that you see it. You're telling them that I see you and I see the struggle that you're going with. And then also empathy for this position. Once they've told and they're talking about if the conversation is appropriate, it's a problem they're coming from, if it's a stress that they're feeling, tell them that. You were 12 once, you were 13 once, you know what it feels like to be 11 and lose the love of your life when you were 11? So when we judge them, when we don't go, oh my gosh, I remember that happening when I was 12, that really hurts. How are you dealing with that? You are trying to see things through their perspective. You're being a loving guide. You are unwavering. You're giving them a place to come back to. You're not being over-controlling. You're allowing them and say, this is a safe space for you to come and talk to me. So conveniently, what does that spell? That is love. That is what we can give our kids. That is a way to pull that little acronym out of your brain no matter what they're saying. And I'm not saying everything that they say, oh, wait, I haven't got to O yet. No, I got to get to B. It's not all of those for every situation. And sometimes it's in a different order. Sometimes the first thing you're going to do is, wow, you sound really frustrated. That might be your first thing. But think of those things of what can you say with a conversation? Good news, bad news, questions, stress, not saying anything. Think of those ways to pull information. You are showing you kids that you are safe to come and talk to me. Because you know what you're not doing? You're not judging them. You're not giving them all of your age-old knowledge in that moment. You're giving them an opportunity to be heard, to let them see that you see them, that you feel you hear what they're feeling, and you're expressing that to them, and you're giving them an opportunity to talk. So, follow up to this. So now you've talked about how do you go on to your next stage? What are some other things that you can talk and say? So here's some other things after you've gone through this. Thank you for sharing with me. Hey, I'm so proud of you for whatever that might have been. Thank you for trusting me with this. Is there anything you think I could do to help? Thanks for coming to me. I like it when you talk to me about things that are on your mind. I appreciate you talking with me about this. And then there might be the next step. Thinking about what do they do next? It might be, what do you think you should do next? And you're asking them, what do you think should be done? You're not telling them what to do. It might be, they still have some things to figure out, and you're recognizing it. Sounds like there's some more things you need to be figured out, and maybe we should talk again. I'm here for you. Or you might ask them, hey, would you like any suggestions from me, or did you just want me to listen? You are then allowing them to say, please help me, and then you can. You are showing them that you are a safe place to come and just talk, and it's up to them if they want that advice. Sometimes as parents, that advice can creep in there little bits. I'm not saying giving them advice is wrong. I'm just saying work with them on that and see what you can do. Okay. A simple scenario. Do I have any volunteers who would like to try this? There might be prizes involved. I'm going to put it back on the love right there. Don't make me bring my mom up here. You're making me bring my mom up here, aren't you? Okay, thanks. Come up here. You are going to get this beautiful, amazing book called Building Resilience in Children and Teens by Ginsberg. Fantastic. This is what I want you to do. I want you can look up there. I'm going to come with you with a problem. And I want to go through this stage of what you could do with this problem. So I'm your daughter, and I am having a rough time. I'm going to come to you and see. You can, and there's suggestions that people can say. You can fully go out, but you can try to do it. There's no right or wrong. Well, let's go through this process. So Oh my gosh, Mom, I was at school today, and you know what I learned? I learned that Susan, they had a party and they didn't invite me. It was all over social media, and now everyone knows that I'm not the one invited, and I don't know what to do, and she used to be my best friend, and then she went and did this, and I don't know what I'm going to do.
It sounds like you're just really tore up about this.
I am.
Have you talked to any of your friends about this?
No. I haven't talked to any of my friends. Well, maybe I could talk to, I don't think Rachel was invited either. It's just everybody now knows. They know that I wasn't invited, and those were my friends. I thought they were my friends, and they were gonna like be there and want me to do things.
Okay, so let's walk through that.
Okay.
So you didn't get invited.
Nope, I didn't get invited.
Is it the worst thing in the world?
Well, it feels like it because I saw it on social media that they had a party and they had pictures and I wasn't in the picture. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't think I'll ever have friends like that again. I think I'll just end my friendship with them. I think I just need to stop being their friends.
That's a good idea. I didn't like her mom anyway.
Perfect. So let's talk about some things we did right and some things maybe we could improve on. That's the opportunity. It was beautiful. She expressed, she saw my feelings that I was talking about. She asked some questions about that, hey, who have you talked about? She let me do the talking and processing about things I might do. And then she had that kicker of, she didn't like her mom anyway. In that moment, it probably felt good. The next day when I come back and I say, hey, guess who's my best friend? We figured it all out. I just didn't get the message. That's what happened. So that's the kind of thing going on that we want to see. So good job there. And that book that she has right there, that's one by Ken Ginsberg, who's the pediatrician I talk about. He has a whole series of books that talk about how to do this, and I read them, and they're in such a way that's understandable, and I encourage you, I'll give you the website at the end. It's not ones even you have to purchase. There's also just little areas, and you'll recognize some of the stuff that I have in here right from him as well. Okay. Some take-home points we're just going to kind of talk about. Let's go back here. Our children are watching us, and I think we all know that. And what we want those children to know is that our love is unwavering. We are there for them. We are standing there and we're ready to help them. When it comes to issues of safety or values that we know this is not the person you wanted to be maybe in what you did, or we know that you could stand up and be that person you see in yourself, then we might step in. But we're not judging you. We are just preparing you for the future. And kids learn the most at times when we're not trying to teach them anything. It's a time to think about, what is your moral compass? What are you showing them? They are there, they are watching you. When you went through the store and they didn't charge you for the thing underneath your cart and you got out to the car, they're watching what you did in that moment. They're watching you when you make decisions. So think about what your moral compass is. Who are you talking about? About your neighbor who did this? Maybe your ex-spouse? Maybe your mother-in-law? Maybe other siblings, not them? They're watching and they're learning what you are saying and doing. So what example are you? And maybe the biggest one is, what about with yourself? How hard are you on yourself? Your body, your actions, what you might have forgot to do, what ball you might have dropped. Are you forgiving to yourself? Are you showing them how to forgive yourself and to have self-compassion for yourself? And what you want to show them is that you are going to be there when they need you. You are going to be there when you need me. I am here for you. So some take-home thoughts I want you to go with. Most of these messages that we talked about, they're going to work with younger kids too. You might have to morph them in a different way. We talked about how their prefrontal cortex isn't even connected to their amygdala at that point. But you can still give them a gift of respect and talking with them in a way in which they can understand. You can be responsible and flexible with the younger kids, but these rules are guardrails, and kids do better with steady expectations. And when you are steady in that and show them what is expected and what is not, they are going to be more successful kids. And it's not the little things that matter. Sometimes it's the big things. It's not the sock on the floor. It's not that you didn't pick up your towel. It's not that the sink, again, is still dirty. Those things matter, and they're part of it, but they're not the only thing. They're not the most important thing. The most important thing is that if you need me, I am there, and I respect you as my child. Will you be the parent that your kid wants to come and talk to you? That is up to you to choose to lay the groundwork now, so in the future that can happen. So that you are more than, as we talked about, you're more than a friend. We want to be our kids' friends, but we want to be more than a friend. We lose friends. Can you all think about friends you used to have that you don't communicate with anymore? We are more than friends. We're your parent. We want to be there, we want to guide you, and we want to be that person that you can always count on. A child also can sometimes become a little bit worried about disappointing you and losing. You might have disappointed a friend and lost a friend. We want them to show, one thing about a parent, you're not going to lose a parent. We are here for you. So, one more thought, because I keep having thoughts while I was trying to finish this lecture. So this is one more thought. I wanted to just briefly touch on the mental health uptick that we have seen. So when a kid, we've heard a lot about depression, anxiety, more kids with this, kids at home, social media, all of these things. We don't have enough time to kind of go into all of it. But in a nutshell is don't deny an emotion. If a kid is expressing that emotion, listen to them. Don't tell them, you're not depressed, you're not this. These are emotions. They are labeling them, listen to them. Do the love with them. You saw her just perfectly explain it there. Give them and let them frame it maybe in a reasonable way that they could understand. So say some response of, I'm just feeling this way and they said this and this hurt my feelings. You could say, you're just too sensitive. That can happen. I've heard before, I'm too sensitive. You know what? Being too sensitive is also my gift. It's my gift, but it's my challenge and my burden to figure out how to rein it in to use it for the good, and that could be my superpower. So some of these things we're telling kids, don't be this, don't be that. Are they stressed? You bet they're stressed. But you know who this mental health crisis is super overwhelming for? The parents, the people. We're the ones like, what do we do with this? You know what you can do with it? You can show up, you can stand next to the kid, and you can say, I'm here for you. Let's figure this out together and support them and tell them they deserve this support. And you know, if you need to reach out to a professional, then do it. But in that part of it, think about, don't deny them this action because you don't think it's real. Be there for them and listen to them. Oh, and one last thought, because I had another one. Report card. It's not about the A's. It's not about the A's. Do we want to encourage them to do their best? Yes, we do. But what's important is that your kid knows that you are there for them. And you're forming a relationship. It's not about that kid just right there. You have them for this amount of time, right? You want to give them the balance and the understanding and the belief and the stability so they are the kid you raised at 35 and at 45 and at 50. After that too. You want them to understand that, because how many job offers when they get out of college say, and what did you get in algebra? What was that B- about? This becomes less relevant. But you know what they see on job interviews? How do they get along with people? How do they get along with their last boss and the job they had before? What kind of leader are they? That's what we're trying to train for. I'm not saying college isn't important and grades aren't important, but I'm saying it's not the most important thing when you get down into the life part of it. It's how you treat others and how you feel about yourself, and you have the power to change that. So, there they are. These are the resources that I was talking about. A lot of the information I got, that's the healthychildrens.org. That's the parent side of the American Academy of Pediatrics, the AAP. That has lots of things. You can just type in how to talk to teens, how to do this, or about and that. But the second one, parentandteen.com, is the resource that I got a lot of this information because I've seen Ken Ginsberg talk. He came up to Fairbanks and talked here once years ago, and I was totally taken with him the way, and he's one of the reasons that I've kind of dove into this area just a little bit more. So at the Center for Parent and Teen Communication, it's all about how to talk to your teens, and that's an excellent one. Not only does it have resources for adults, they're also for teens as well. So you got this.